insulted you, or someone maybe, took a joke too far. But actually there's different types of conflict, right? There's types of conflicts when maybe you're the one that hurt someone else, and you didn't think they'd take it that way. You thought it was kind of funny, maybe, or you didn't mean to say it in that way. But somehow, sometimes we're in a situation when we're the ones that are the culprit of the situation. What do we do in that situation? And then sometimes there's also just pure misunderstandings. We're going to have Sammy and Anna share on fun misunderstanding, I would say. But sometimes this is the thing that really leads to real conflict in relationships. It's something that we didn't mean to hurt the other person, but, just a miscommunication, nothing intentional, but it leads to conflict. So today we're going to have three wonderful sharers. One will share about a time that, someone hurt them. Another will share about a time when maybe they accidentally hurt someone else. And then we're also going to have a misunderstanding, and they will share how did they practically navigate these complicated waters. So just to jog your memory, guys, I know during WFH, work from home is when fights happen. So some situations that, of our extensive survey of our close friends, what are some of the things that people usually fight about? It could be in the situation with your parents. Let's say they're forcing you to do something and you don't want to do that, and it's leading to a lot of tension at home, especially when you guys are spending a lot of time together. Or, it could be a boss or colleague seeming to always disagree on things, and like, why do they make things so difficult? Or, you feel like your significant other could try harder on something. Or on the other hand, you feel like your significant other should nag less. Maybe that's a situation that sounds familiar. Or, even in friendships, like let's say now that we're, I guess, a lot more virtual with our friendships, maybe it's an issue of feeling like, why does your friend keep bailing? And you're feeling kind of disconnected and you don't know how to bring it up. So many different types of situations, guys. Remember, if you see something that's relevant, you have to type "it me." keep it spicy, guys. But before that, we're actually gonna jump into a Menti time, guys. So please log into menti.com, and we're going to kind of recap a little bit. What kind of fighter are you guys? So 26, 33, 87, 9. And I'm going to move over to the Menti right here. All right. Question number 1. What is the first thing you usually say or do when someone has hurt you? Go ahead and vote. I think. All righty. Avoid the person. Just let it pass over. Brush it off. No big deal. Immediately confront them and clarify the situation. Complain to your friends about this rude person. Feel personally insulted and down on yourself. Okay, I can relate to that, I think. These are our subjugated folks. Brush it off, no big deal. Okay, there's a lot of avoiders. Thank you for your honesty, guys. We'll open it for a couple more seconds. Thanks for the "it me," guys, in the chat. There's two people praying about praying for their enemies. Bless your souls. But okay, cool. So yeah, like a lot of us, usually when someone has hurt us, first instinct isn't really to really necessarily, I mean, it's two extremes that we see here, right? It's either you completely avoid the person or you brush it off, or some other people are like, I'm so pissed off, I'm going to immediately confront them now and ask what's going on. So, okay, next question, guys. If I can get it, hold on. Oh, hey, how do I? Okay, next question. What is the first thing you have said or done when you've hurt someone or been confronted by someone because you hurt them? So basically, this is the opposite situation. You are the hurter. What do you guys usually react? How do you react? Well, slow down. You're overreacting. Labay, guys, labay. All right, some people initiating with them to clarify the situation at the right time. All right, cool, guys. Some people quickly tell them, okay, I'm sorry, and then move on. You can relate to that too. You would have sorry, bye. It me. I can't believe you would accuse me of that when I had good intentions. Yes. Self-criticizing and feeling like a bad person for wronging them. I think that also can relate to that for sure. Okay, cool. So interesting. So in this one, actually, when you're the one who has hurt someone, a lot of people try to initiate with the person they have hurt, clarify the situation at the right time. Great, guys. That's awesome. Some people, are, the quickly tell them, oh, I'm sorry, and move on. So, okay, cool. So there's so many different ways, right, that we deal with conflict. And back to our presentation on this, and how does this relate really to our topic today? So just to kind of recap, the last time we talked about conflict was actually when we were doing our sin series last year. And Fen actually shared with us about different types of conflict reactions. So we have three main ones, and these are some of the things that we covered in our mentee just now. So first, the counterattacker. So, when these are the ones that if they get hurt, they're the ones like, I want to immediately confront this person and figure out what's going on. So they want to, usually they're the ones that if they're hurt, they will try to solve the issue there and then. Sometimes it can be a little intense to talk to a counterattacker. And this is really the fight instinct in a conflict. And then just now, the avoider, I think maybe a lot of you can, put it me if you can relate to this. These include the people who answered, if a conflict arises, I will quickly say, okay, I'm sorry, and move on. Those, maybe some of you are truly sorry, but some people are actually just trying to peace out of there, so running away from conflict, postponing having to confront people, maybe like avoiding the problem altogether. These are the typical avoiders. And then the last camp, which personally I can really relate to that one, is the fright one, the surrender one. So these ones, if you guys are the ones that wrote like, if someone were to confront you, then you kind of start feeling down about yourself. Or if, someone has hurt you, then you take that as sort of like a personal comment on your being, and maybe, these are people who tend to kind of bottle up their emotions a little bit and allow other people to have the upper hand. This is the fright type of conflict reaction. So, you guys can put in the chat and later I'll read it, and Fen and I will read and start counting, how many counterattackers we have, how many avoiders, and how many surrenders. So which one are you? All right, cool. So now that we've kind of recapped the different type of conflict reactions, what's really cool is that, in the Bible, it doesn't really matter which type of conflict reaction that you have, because ultimately, each of those, I would say, comes with its set of right and wrong, but ultimately where we want to be is what it says in Ephesians, right? Which is, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. And actually, last time we introduced this love framework as well, which we're going to get in real detail, guys, today with real examples and real memes. So we're going to talk about the love framework. So I'm gonna focus first on the L and the O, and we're gonna have some sharings from Alfan, and then we're gonna pass over to Fen, and then we're gonna have some sharings after that. But first, we're gonna talk about listening and observing and what the Bible says about that, and what does that really look like? Okay, cool. So first of all, listen, don'ts. So think back, guys, to the last time you had a conflict. Think about how you reacted, just like what you were answering in the mentee just now. Is this you? So these are the don'ts, though. When you have a conflict, either as a victim of the conflict or as a culprit of the conflict, your reaction is to sometimes in the middle, let's say someone's confronting you about it, you cut them off or you interrupt. You wanna say what you wanna say, and you gotta have it out because you're raging, especially if someone has hurt you. These are the people who really just like get in there, get into the fight. If not, are you the type who will, you look like you're listening, maybe, sort of. I mean, you're not saying anything per se, but maybe, you're kind of arms are crossed, or you're playing Tetris in your head. You have a game of snakes in your head right now when this person is talking. I can relate this a lot to when I talk to my parents sometimes. It's like parents are like yada yada yada, and you're just like, yes, I'm listening. Okay, fine, bye. So another listening don't. Last but not least, take the response as a personal attack. So, like when, let's say someone is coming to you and saying, hey, like, I just wanted to give you some feedback on this conflict. Like, when I wish you hadn't done this thing, you're busy thinking about like, oh my goodness, she thinks I'm a bad person, or he thinks I'm a bad person. I'm the worst person. And you're thinking about, this is a personal attack on me. So these are some of the don'ts that we see. What does the Bible say we should do then? Okay, so there are two Bible verses in terms of listening. And the first one is in Proverbs 17:27, who says, whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. So where does listening start? I think, when we were kind of like talking about this and getting advice on this, I think the number one thing about listening that is the most difficult is actually keeping a cool spirit. So keeping, when you're in the heat of the moment, you're in like a ginormous fight and someone's kind of even like nagging at you or picking at you. I think the one that's really difficult is to keep a handle on your emotions, deciding instead of reacting. And I think what's really cool is that what the Bible tells us to do is actually first look at your heart and figure out, like be conscious of the emotions that you have, because think about what Jesus did. The Pharisees were all nganjaming him left, right, and center, but Jesus did not lose his cool. He had a cool spirit, and so should we. And that's where listening begins. And then the second part about what the Bible says about conflict is listening actually, you hear a lot about active listening, right? And the Bible actually talks about this, and it says, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. This is when, you have a situation where you're listening, but you're listening so that you can say a comeback. You can relate to that, it me. But then, basically, I think a lot of this active listening, it has a lot to do with trying to really understand where this person is coming from, like, what is your body language like? What are you actually thinking in your mind? Once you have a cool spirit, it will be much easier for you to actually be able to process what the person is saying. And, even in like psychology and things, it says active listening means that you would be able to even like repeat what some of this person is saying, because you actually listen to them instead of just waiting to kind of pounce with a comeback. So these are the listen do's. Next step is observe. So, okay, some reactions to, common reactions to observe, what we usually do in conflict. Is this you? First one, you force the person to solve the situation right now. You want to solve it right now. You want to, you're mad and you want to make sure you're heard, and you want to make sure that they know how you feel, and you want to make sure that they know they're wrong. If any of you can relate to that, that is the sort of maybe natural reaction that some of us have. The second one is run away. So these are the people who answered on the Menti just now. If there's a conflict, you're like, okay, no, I'm gonna walk that way for this one. Maybe not ever. So these are the avoiders. Your sort of natural reaction is to say, I don't think this is the right time. You know what? I don't think this is the right time. I'm really upset right now, but maybe I'm just worried that like this person's feeling this way right now. So I'm gonna do it later. Like, but the thing is, you keep pushing it and you keep bottling it up, and it just the time when you actually bring up this conflict is usually when that bottle is about to explode. So if this is you, put that in the chat. So these are sort of the observed don'ts. A lot of common ones. I can really relate to this a lot. I think there are definitely issues where I've like maybe like something really bothers me about, let's say like in a friendship or anything. And I actually have a really hard time sometimes bringing it up because I'm sort of like, I end up bottling it up. And then after that, because I bottled it up, even a good opportunity, I don't necessarily see it like that. And then in the end, what happens is it like a minor explosion. So I think that can be really difficult, and we all deal with conflict in different ways, but these are some of the don'ts of observe. So what does the Bible say we should do? So the who, the where, the when. So there's a Bible verse in Matthew that's great, and it's actually so specific, and I was super surprised when I saw this. But essentially it says, if you have conflict, if your brother or sister sins against you, you should go and point out their fault just between the two of you. So this is in direct answer to those people who wrote in the Menti, when something happens, I go immediately and talk about it to my friends about this rude person. And I can relate to that as well. But we need to kind of restrain ourselves, guys, from gossip. And we actually, the best thing to do is to really, start. You need to start with directly talking to the person. And I think one of a few things matter here, maybe like as a culprit of as the culprit, like let's say you're the one who has hurt someone. I think something that can be a little bit counterintuitive, but is actually to also initiate with the person that you have hurt, right? To really figure out like, hey, like, and ask like, are you ready to talk about this? And also to understand and have the patience if they're not ready to talk about it. And if you're the person who you've been hurt, I think, some of what we've learned and what the Bible tells us is we need to find the right time to do things, right? So maybe it means also like you're able to compartmentalize a little bit in your head and not, you're like, okay, we've agreed to talk about this next week, so I'm gonna hate you from now till next week. That is not what the Bible asks us to do. So, it's observing is really about figuring out who should be in that conversation. Where should the conversation take place? Like, should it be just in a cafe, the two of you, or should it be in a very public place in the middle of, when you're with all of your friends and you're about to blow up? When should you do it? Like things are obviously received much better when I know some people need to be comfy, like they need to be already like in a better state of mind. Right after work might not be a great time to confront someone about something. But yeah, like I think the observed God is really specific about how and when we should resolve our conflict. So with that, I would like to pass on to a quick sharing first from Alfan, who's going to share with us a little bit about his experience with conflict. So Fan, on to you.
Hi guys. Oh, okay. I'm gonna share like one or two things that I experienced myself. Um, to be honest, at first when Steffi and Fan asked me to share about conflict, I'm not really sure that I'm like the right person to share about it, because I don't resolve conflicts. I always won over them, and and I create conflict. So, yeah. First things first. Um, Well, my I don't really have a lot of conflicts in my life. Like not with friends, definitely, but I think most of the conflict happens in family settings, cause like that's where like we are, like mostly at home and we meet each other often, and like yeah, everyone is sensitive, so yeah, it happens a lot. Usually the conflict is usually small, like maybe it's like simple stuff, maybe like can you not put your dirty laundry on the floor, like that. And then I would answer with like aggression, with like apaan sih, and like, or like, and then it escalates and like everyone becomes angry, and like bringing up old problems, bringing up um uh old times where we got hurt by each other, and like yeah, I think it's mostly because of my pride. And usually, um when I deal with conflicts, I don't deal with them. I just pretend that I listen to them, but I just brush it off, and that actually have an effect on on my relationship with my family members. Like, people can get distant, and like, there's not a lot of communication. And usually when I'm being confronted, my usual response is to fight back, to be angry, and like, maybe that's also why people doesn't really confront me, because they would know that I would be angry, and yeah, and so they just don't even bother to do it. But there's this one time. Um, Usually, when we are, everything starts simple. It's like just maybe like someone giving me constructive advice about something simple. Like my sister, when she talked to me like, Cole, can you not do that? I would like, apaan sih? And then it would start into a fight, and then yeah, and then but it's never being discussed again. But maybe over time I started to listen more, and not, well, it's still a work in progress, but definitely I'm not as angry as before. Maybe wrong timing too. Never confront me on an empty stomach. Or yeah. Um, yeah, I think for me sometimes not being sensitive and my pride is in the way of resolving conflicts. Cuz like sometimes when as a guy, I think I was brought up in like when I grew up with my friends, like our language of love is sarcasm. And like, and sometimes when we joke around, we didn't mean it, but it may have hurt someone. And 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 that's why like I don't really know if it's hurting or not, since like if I think that it doesn't hurt, then you should think the same too. But I cannot apply it to everyone. So yeah, I gotta understand more, and definitely my pride has been the biggest obstacle, because it feels like when you listen to someone and when you say sorry, it made you look weak, and I don't want to look weak, especially like in the family, being the big brother. I want to be the alpha. I want to be respected, and respect is gained. I think um, usually it's two ways, either love or fear, and I usually choose fear. But I guess having lessons on like this conflict resolutions, and the Bible says, this is the verse that is always uh, my mom always told this verse in the family. I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. So I think before we say something, or before we respond, we should think about it first, and make decisions later. Yeah. I think that's pretty much the sharing from me. Thank you guys for listening.
All right. Thanks, Alfan. That was a really great sharing. I can definitely relate. Also, the type of person that would definitely attack when somebody brings up something with me. So that is definitely my natural response. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And coming back to this love framework, we want to cover the last 2 points of the VE, which is validating feelings and also empathy. So with validating, what do you think validating actually means? It does not mean that when we are, giving feedback to another person, that you would definitely have to agree that, okay, that's the right thing, I'm wrong. That's not what validating actually means, But before we get into it, these are just some examples of what we do, of what we do naturally, maybe. And, again, put it in the group if this is what you do. But the first thing is you're overreacting. So how many of us that when someone is confronting us or saying, giving us feedback, that the first reaction we have is, you're being too sensitive. I think you're overreacting, That's not what I meant. So I think you're just, you're lebay, you know? I think that's a tendency that a lot of people do. And I feel like sometimes, I do that as well. And I know that, growing up in an Asian family where maybe feelings are not necessarily always discussed, this is something that a lot of our parents maybe say to us as well, oh, you're being too sensitive, you know? The second thing, jumping to conclusions. So how many of us, when someone is explaining something to us, you automatically already think, oh, this is what this person meant. Oh, this person is just attacking. Oh, this person is just this. Oh, they're trying to bring me down. How many of us actually jump to those conclusions while the other person is explaining? And I think the last one, is definitely what I do, which is attack mode. So before the person even finishes what they need to say, how many of us end up just attacking and getting defensive? Well, you're also like this, so you have no right to say that to me. That's definitely something that I do, and just look at the person, that is that you're actually replying that to, like that cat's face. They're just gonna be like, I don't know, paan sih gitu. So, when we want to talk about validating people's feelings, what we actually need to do is to be a safe space for that person to talk. I used to hate this because this was something that Marsh actually is very good at when we're actually, in conflict. But I used to really, struggle a lot with this, which is when the other person is explaining feedback to you, do you ask questions? Do you be like, do you take what they say and actually, okay, can you tell me more? So what actually makes you feel sad? What about what I did, triggered you, And once they actually tell you something, how many of us actually confirm and clarify with them? It's not a consulting thing, guys, but going back and saying, repeating what they say to ensure that you got the message. Okay, so you feel sad because I used this word with you. Is that correct? Have the right meaning out of what they say, because if you don't clarify, sometimes we pick up the wrong thing and that ends up becoming a bigger conflict. And of course, the last one is for us to respond. This is similar to what Steffi was saying, right? It's not only our body language that is important, but when somebody is actually expressing their heart and soul to us, how do you think they feel if we just keep quiet and we're just like, cool, okay, I'm sorry, have a sincere response. Thank you. Okay, I understand, have great body language and eye contact with them, It helps them with the whole validating their feeling, whether or not you are the person that is receiving feedback or the person that is, hurt as well. I think this is a great way to have healthy conversations with each other. Okay. And last, of course, you have empathize. So, I think this is definitely one of the hardest things for us to do, because it's similar to what Alfan was sharing. All of us, in some sense, have our own pride, and to have empathy and to empathize with the other person is sometimes very difficult for all of us. So a few things of no-nos when it comes to empathize. The first one is, I'm being defensive because you're being offensive. This is such a natural thing for us, that when someone is attacking us or when someone is giving us feedback, we automatically shut down and we get, no, that's not me. You're just being this way. You're the one that is being aggressive, calm down. That's not me, How many of us actually feel in our hearts that, hey, I'm being attacked and I just need to protect myself, Second thing, not caring enough to actually change. So this is typically what an avoider usually does, that, you say, okay, I understand, But after the conflict is over, you don't really do anything about it, you know? You're just, okay, avoiding the situation until next time the same thing happens again and conflict happens, you know? And, you know, sometimes, again, this is going to be a very difficult thing if we actually keep doing this, you know, avoiding the real root of the problem. And of course, lastly, which I think is also very common, is resentment. You know, sometimes, you know, maybe we're not happy receiving feedback, or, you know, we're not happy being attacked by somebody, or, you know, we end up becoming bitter towards other people as well, you know? But what is the right way for us to really give empathy to others? The first one is be humble and acknowledge their hurt. You know, when someone is giving you feedback, whether or not that, you know, you hurt them or they have hurt you, you know, you acknowledge their pain. I'm sorry you feel this way. Sorry that I made you feel this way. You know, I understand why you feel this way. Acknowledge that pain of theirs. You know, understand where they are coming from. You know, the mistake that we always make sometimes is that we only think about, well, this is where I'm coming from. But, you know, we really need to understand the other person and, you know, understand that, okay, they feel this way because they come from this kind of background. They come from this kind of upbringing. They're in this kind of situation. So I need to be understanding of that, you know? And lastly, of course, to encourage and appreciate them. Thank you for being honest with me. Thank you for being open with me. You know, in Ephesians 4, verse 29, it says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouth, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. Okay. Next. Yeah. So, you know, before we move on to more, I guess, practical ways of which we handle conflict, I want to pass it over as well to LP, who will be sharing about her own experience when it comes to validating and giving empathy to someone maybe that has, you know, hurt her and maybe wronged her. So LP, on to you.
Thank you, Fen. Hi guys, I'm LP, and I first want to preface this just by saying that I wanted to share an experience about a conflict that I had with one of my coworkers. And one of my coworkers is Sarah. She's here with me, but I promise that this conflict is not about her. I would not be talking about her. If I had a conflict with her, I would approach her and talk to her directly. This is actually about another coworker of mine. But I currently work as a first grade teacher, and I work at a school here in Jakarta, and I really love my job. I really love working with small kids, and I've wanted to be a teacher since I was actually a little girl. And so I felt really, really grateful just for the opportunity to do that. And I am actually one of the youngest people on my team. So a lot of the people that I work with are 10, 15 years older than me. And I've even had coworkers of mine who they're so much older than me that their children are my age. And so sometimes I've had to work with people who have kids that are my age. And right before COVID hit this year, I actually got a brand new person, a new team member that I had to work with, another teacher that I was asked to collaborate with and create projects on, to work on a curriculum together, and also just come up with different projects for our students and for the school. And I was really, really excited to work with her because she just had a lot of energy. She was really passionate about her job. But at the same time, I was also very intimidated by her. She didn't have one, not two, but she had 3 master's degrees, and she's currently working to get her PhD. So I definitely felt like I didn't really have as much to bring to the table as she did. She's also very hardworking and very, very dedicated. But at the same time, I was just really grateful and really honored that I had the chance to work with someone that had so much experience, and I was really eager to learn from her. When COVID hit, obviously everyone around us kind of went into a panic, and everyone was trying to figure out how to go from doing things in person to doing things online. And I know that for my coworker, this was extremely stressful for her. And so our relationship started to shift a little bit more. and things started to become increasingly hard. My coworker no longer wanted to collaborate with me. She would ignore me. She would not look at my emails. She would not talk to me. She basically did everything that she could to avoid me. And I knew that my job was to work with her, and we had to work together in order to come up with new curriculum together. And it was really, really hard because here we are trying to adjust to working and doing everything online. And my coworker didn't want to communicate or even collaborate with me in any way. And I definitely felt hurt because I just wanted to do my job and I just wanted to work together with someone. And I wanted to be able to work together as a team because that was what we were meant to do originally from the start. It got so bad that my boss actually had to come in and talk to her on my behalf in order to get her to work with me. But even when my boss approached her and talked to her about working together and collaborating with me, she still refused. She wanted to make all the decisions. She did not want me to be in, she didn't want me to influence any of the decision making. She just wanted me to follow along. And I definitely felt very, very hurt. A lot of the times when we would have team meetings, she would belittle me in front of my coworkers to the point where my other coworkers actually felt bad for me because they felt like, wow, the way that this person is treating Elizabeth just isn't right. And so I wanted to be loving towards her because I know that even when people are hurtful or unkind, I think one of the best things that we can do is still show them a lot of love and kindness. And so I decided to send her encouraging emails to appear in her inbox from time to time. I wrote her letters every so often to encourage her because I know that she loves words of affirmation. And I even found out like what her favorite food was so I could send it to her whenever she was feeling down or discouraged. I really did everything that I could to let my coworker know that I appreciated her, that I cared about her, and that I wanted to work with her, even if she didn't want to work with me. But even when I did all of this, my coworker did not want to work with me, and I felt really sad. And this went on from the months of March all the way up until November. And I was at a loss and I just didn't know what to do. So instead of confronting her, I started talking about her with my friends. And of course, I like kept her name anonymous, but I started just complaining and I just was really, really unhappy. And looking back, I realized that what I should have done was I should have confronted her because I'm naturally a conflict avoider and I would rather run away and pretend that the problem doesn't exist because if I pretend that it doesn't exist, then it must not exist. But I learned from, my friends here in the community and even through counseling that that's just not the right way to approach conflict. I also have learned a lot just from the Bible and from what God's word has taught me. In Luke 6, starting in verse 27, it says, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful." I tried to do everything that I could do to love my coworker, but the one thing that I was kind of failing to do was to pray for her. And I wanted to share something really encouraging with you because I feel like this was really just God working through this situation. But I started praying regularly for my coworker. And this was hard because she hurt me. And praying for her was honestly the last thing that I wanted to do. But because I prayed for her, it actually helped my heart to be in a place where I could empathize with her, to see where she was coming from, to try and put myself in her shoes. I wanted to share an email that my coworker sent to me after I started praying for her. Now, she normally does not do this, but as soon as she sent this email, I felt like God was really answering my prayers. "Hi, Elizabeth. As I reflected on myself the past week, I realized that I was not very encouraging when you were sharing your ideas to our team. I truly apologize for being blunt with my input. That was neither kind nor well done on my part. I hope you'll forgive my insensitivity towards your work. I genuinely appreciate all the hard work you've put into our team. This was so much more than I could have imagined, and thank you for your help this past year. Please know that I'm very happy with all the work that you've done." when I read that email, it actually made me tear up because I realized that sometimes we try to do things much on our own when really we have to rely so much on God's power and the way that God does things, and to remember to have faith in every single situation. I can currently say that my coworker and I are now friends. We just got frozen yogurt together yesterday, and we'll watch, different Korean dramas together. But I just feel really grateful that God is so much more powerful than us. And I'm not saying that every single conflict can be solved this easily, but I think that when we pray for our enemies, when we put ourselves in other people's shoes and we have a heart of empathy, God can really do incredible things. So thank you guys so much for letting me share.
Wow, amazing, LP. Thank you so much for that. And, it's just so encouraging to hear as well what God can do when we also put our faith and our trust in him as well in conflict resolution. So that's amazing. Yeah, so just, a few more things as well. One of the things that we want to share today is this concept of rules of fair fighting. I think this was a concept that, really, really helped both me and Marshall when we first started dating. Because if you guys were here for the last talk that we did on anger, Marshall was sharing about how difficult it was, at the beginning of our relationship when we first started dating, and these are the concepts that have really helped us in how to speak and behave towards one another. That is, both, I guess, encouraging, but also, healthy for the both of us. Yeah. So the first thing is vulnerable talk. I think, this is a concept that people really throw around a lot, but actually, what does vulnerable talk really mean? When we are, in conflict, I think a lot of the times we always focus on the action that that person has done. Oh, I don't like it when you did this, oh, you use that tone with me. Oh, it's because you didn't care enough. We focus so much on what the other person does, but actually vulnerable talk really calls us to focus a lot on our own feelings, So statements like, I feel hurt, when you use that tone on me, or I feel hurt when, you bring up the way I dress or the way I look, so it's focusing on the feelings instead of the action of the other person. And it sounds very weird because it's not a natural thing for us. We want to jump straight to the problem. But actually, when we focus on the feelings, that actually helps the other person gain clarity that, oh, okay, so the consequences of my actions actually led to you feeling this way, Next. Yeah. And again, this was something that was also discussed in the previous GEM talk, which was acknowledging your weaknesses. Be humble and accept the fact that you can also grow, whether or not you are the person that hurt the person or the person that is the receiver of the hurt. We all have weaknesses. And I think when we can be humble to say, my weakness is that I'm insecure. My weakness is that I'm very impatient in this area. It actually becomes an encouraging thing to the other person as well, and, when you can acknowledge that this is an area that you can grow in together with the other person, then it actually makes, conflict resolution a lot more peaceful between the two of you guys. And lastly, as well, it's clarifying your needs. I think this is a very common thing that, especially, when we're dating somebody, right? How many of us have actually thought in our heads, well, you've known me for 20 years already. You've known me for 2 years, 3 years. We've dated for this long. You should know by now what I want. You should know by now what I need, But, we have to realize that the other person can't read our minds. So it's okay to clarify your needs, focus on what you need the other person to do to be helpful for you. I need you to just listen and not give me solutions. I need you to just hear me complain about my bad day, not to give me advice, And it's okay to say that, clarify that, because you're putting expectations and will know that that's an expectation, as opposed to you having that expectation, but not sharing that, and that actually in turn creates more conflict. So yeah. Next. Yeah. And just, some more additional practicals, which I think are very helpful, take time in understanding how to make each other feel loved. I know that this is something that Marsha and I needed to learn a lot, in our relationship, for example. I know that I'm the type of person that needs quality time. So when Marshall can give me quality time, I actually feel very loved by him. And because of that, it actually makes it easier for us to resolve conflict when I feel loved by him as well. He has to bring something up, and it's the same vice versa for both, resolve the current conflict. Don't bring up past instances. I think this is also a common mistake, that when we're trying to resolve the conflict that happened today, we bring up something that has happened a week ago and said, well, you don't have the right to, talk to me about this because last week you did this, don't bring up something that is from the past, even though that's not resolved. That's, for another time of talking. Resolve the issue that you currently are going through right now, And again, avoid extreme words like using never or always. We tend to say, oh, but you're always like this. You never want to spend time with me, because that's actually not true, and it's not that they never do it, but maybe they just don't do it enough, And I think this one is very important as well, which is seek peace, not to win the argument. I think sometimes, we tend to enter into an argument thinking that I just want to get my point across. I don't care about how you feel, but I'm the right one in the situation. You're wrong. So therefore, you come in wanting to win the argument. But actually, that's not what God actually wants us to do when we're resolving conflict. We want to seek peace and resolution with each other, And again, this is something that LP was sharing really beautifully about as well. Pray, pray together with the other person if the person is open to do it, or if not, pray to God and really surrender to God as well to help in resolving this conflict as well. And of course, lastly, it's okay to get help. And I think Sammy and Anna will share a lot more about this, but it's okay for us to ask for advice and to include people who we know are spiritually more mature than we are to help us resolve conflict if we know that we aren't capable of doing it just the two of us, So with that, I would like to introduce Sammy and Anna, which are, great examples of a couple, a godly couple here in GEM. And yeah, Sammy and Anna, go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, Fan. Hi guys, I'm Sammy.
Hi, I'm Anna.
Okay, and we would like to open with a verse first, from James 1, verse 19 to 20. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. So that is our key verse. But slides disappeared.
Sorry, wait 1 second.
It's okay, sir. As we go, we can we can pull up our slides. So yeah, to begin our sharing, we'd like to pull out a very specific case.
Yeah, which was Sammy was trying to pick me up in my apartment, but I had lots of stuff to carry to his car. As you can see in this slide, the slide appearing. So I had lots of to carry with me. And before I started to carry all of my stuff, I texted Sammy, hey babe, I had lots of stuff to carry, but I didn't clarify my needs. I just told him I had lots of stuff to carry.
Yeah, but I missed the text.
Yeah, and please don't ask me why I was bringing that much of stuff, but it was a very frustrating moment for me because I had a laptop in my bag, I had my yoga mat, and it was pretty heavy, and it rolled out in front of when I was trying to lock my door.
Yeah.
And the worst part was when I was already in front of the elevator, but I forgot something inside my apartment. So I had to repeat the whole process, right? Putting the stuff down to unlock my door, my yoga mat unrolled, and I was feeling so frustrated, and I felt like, Sammy never initiated to offer me help.
And that picture is on the next. Press 1, Steph, There you go. That's the unrolling of the yoga mat. Anna having difficulty locking the door.
This was just a reenactment.
This is a reenactment of the exact scene, guys. And so, meanwhile, next slide. This was me in the car. I was zooming. I was in a baptism, a Zoom baptism, and so I didn't see the text. So guys, don't text and do a Zoom baptism, or sorry, don't drive and do a Zoom baptism.
Yeah. So it was all basically a miscommunication, and that happened. What happened next? When I approached the car, Sammy immediately got off to help me because he saw me carrying lots of stuff, but I was already so mad at that time. So and I thought, this person never offered me help, so I slammed the door in front of Sammy.
Yeah, I was like, gila ni orang. I already picked her up in the morning before church, and then like she just comes in, the car just slams the door, and I'm like, what the heck, right? So yeah, that was a drama. And usually when fights happen, I try to always want to solve it right away, right?
But just like the most of you, I am a conflict avoider. Usually when I had stuff going on in my heart, I would keep it to myself. But when I do get the chance to blow up, I would blow up all at once. And that's what happened during our car ride. I was just shouting at him.
Yeah, so I'm like in the car, right? I'm like, okay, why? Like, why am I getting shouted at, right? But long story short, I think 2 days after, luckily we had a session with our counselors, Vincent and Crystal, and we talked about the problem. And they reminded us again about the peace framework, which is what we're going to explain later, which here it says on the slide: place, emotional stage, attitude, choice of words, ending, which is very similar to the love framework and the practicals that Fen kind of went through just now. So we want to pinpoint all the don'ts that we did, I guess, during the
case.
fight.
Yeah, during the fight. So place means we have to solve problems in a private setting, right? Not in the car or public places, because our attention will be divided to whatever we were doing at that place if we did it in a public place.
And I was driving, so obviously my attention will be divided between the road and Anna, right? So right place. E is emotional stage, which means that we have the problem that we have the problem when we're emotionally more stable. So we have to, there's always usually a one party that's more emotionally stable, right? But for me, because I wanted to solve the conflict right away, I just kept going at it. I should have called a timeout and just let the emotions, I guess in this case, Anna's emotions cool down a bit. And calling timeouts is very important. So a person who calls a timeout also has to reinitiate the conversation and solve the issue. So I should be calling timeout, and I should be like, when everything cools down, it's like, hey, let's talk about it again.
Yeah. C means choice of words. I got a very meaningful advice from Sonia. Sonia says when we're dating, we should filter our words to our partner. And we are married, we still have to filter our words to our husband. Only God can be the only one that we don't have to filter our words with. And that piece of advice really stuck with me, because when I'm angry, I have the tendency to say extreme words, the ones that Fan shared, like never and always. And Crystal and Vincent taught me this. For example, I tend to say, Sammy, you never offered me help, or Sammy, you always give me the wrong advice. But that's not true. Sammy's the kindest person. He's always sensitive to what I need. And also, yes, sometimes he could give me the wrong advice, but not always, like, right? Only sometimes. So be careful of extreme words, guys.
So yeah, that's peach. Now the E, it means ending. So all problems must come to an end, guys. So I think due to our nature, both of us kind of like to avoid problems. A lot of times problems get swept under the rug, right? So and like Anna said just now, only for it to come up at a completely different situation, escalated multiple times. So endings mean that something has to be done better next time to avoid the same problem happening again. And I guess like in this case, I need to be more attentive and initiate when Anna needs help. And Anna also needs to be more explicit in her communication, right? And if she really does need help, just really say, hey, Sam, I really need help. Can you please come to the front and like help me out with my stuff, or even come up and like help me bring my stuff down, right? So instead of just giving hints like, hey, I need help, and then like expect me to like just like somehow magically appear upstairs. So yeah, be explicit with what you need to communicate, guys. But at the same time, you also, like Anna said, need the filter to. So it's a good balance, and really that's why we really need to lastly pray and be grateful for the conflict. Pray so that we can be better people for each other. Because without the conflict, we have nothing to grow in, right? And when we have nothing to grow in, the relationship is going to be stale and just going to stay there all the time.
Yeah. So in conclusion, I really found this peace framework or the love framework that Steffi and Fan just shared very useful, because it can help us pinpoint what went wrong during the conflict resolution and how can we improve that. Fact is, when Sammy and I worked together to prepare for this sharing, a few conflicts arose, but we knew how to approach it better. So I think even with the frameworks, which are biblical, it probably cannot always prevent conflicts from happening, but can definitely prevent fights from happening. Also, another lesson, guys, get your yoga mat sling if you have not. It's important.
Yeah. So I think that's all from us, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Anna. Lucu banget. Thank you for being very open and honest with us. But glad, you can resolve this conflict as well in regards to preparing for this talk. So yeah, I just want to close up with this last verse, which Steffi has shared part of it as well at the beginning, right? In Matthew 18, verse 15 to 16, it says, if your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault, just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. This is something that, one, it tells us, do not avoid conflict. When we go and resolve that with the person that have wronged us, or, when you want to resolve something that you've done to another person, it's okay to bring it up, and conflict will always happen, but it's good to learn how to resolve it properly in a godly way. And then if it isn't something that can be resolved just between the two of us, then it's okay for us to bring other people that would be more spiritually mature than we are, to actually help us through the conflict. Just now, Sammy and Anna were sharing about how they have help from TJ and Sonia, from Vincent and Crystal. It's okay to ask advice from people who we know maybe are great examples of, marriages, or have great examples of relationship with their parents, or, relationship with their friends. It's okay to ask people for help, So I just want to encourage you guys as well. And I know this is something that, hopefully will open up the way as well. If you guys also need counseling for dating or anything like that, there's always a community that will help, to help you guys through this as well. So yeah, just to close up again, to recap, love, which is listen, O, which is observing the mood and the body language, V, which is validating their feelings, and E, empathizing. So yeah, that's it for today. We are going to go through to our breakout groups after this, and these are the questions that are going to be discussed. Please stay and be part of our discussion group.